Inticreates is a Japanese video game development company founded by ex-Capcom staff in May of 1996, including Takuya Aizu, Yoshida Suda, and Ippo Yamada. One of the most prolific independent dev guilds in Japan, Inti have been behind the creation of over 50 games since their founding. But now, with the recent release in August 2014 of their very first completely self-published title, Azure Striker Gunvolt, for the Nintendo 3DS, I'm going to take a look over Inti's history from the beginnings to today, a retrospective on what I consider to be one of the best Japanese developers in existence. Inticreates' first game was Speed Power Gunbike for the PlayStation 1, published by Sony Entertainment and released in April of 1998, only in Japan. You play as one of three riders, Ippei, Ame, or Major Naono, controlling one of their gunbikes of the title, super vehicles that can transform between a motorbike, rally, or mecha. Stages are broken into two parts. The first has you proceed to the goal, and the second places you in a boss fight. While the driving parts are linear and feel like a race, there is room to go down short extra paths to find items or extra enemies, and often you will need to make huge turns to get around roadblocks or other obstructions. You're given a guide compass for this purpose. You have a time limit for each stage, denoted by the depleting energy meter in the top left, which will also fall due to damage and can be increased by finding power-ups. Like mentioned earlier, you have three modes of travel. The bike is the fastest yet controls poorly and leaves you vulnerable to being knocked off if you take a hit. The rally is slower than the bike, but much more maneuverable, and the mecha form allows you to attack enemies in a number of ways, dashing, shooting, and smashing. It is a fun game once you get the handle of it, but that's also most of the problem. My biggest gripe with Gunbike is the control. First off, there's no way to manually position the camera, which doesn't matter so much in the straight driving sequences, but once you have to make lots of turns or are put in a 3D arena, not being able to move the camera becomes very frustrating. Add to that, the actual controls are very awkward to get around, but there is a tutorial mode right off the title screen that helps immensely, showing you video along with graphics of what button performs each task, meaning you don't need to be able to understand Japanese to learn how to play. There is also no DualShock support, which again doesn't matter much in the driving sequences as you mostly just go left or right, but once you have to move around in 3 dimensions in your mech form, positioning attacks while you're only given 8 directions to move is usually a battle you just can't win. Speed Power Gunbike received mostly middling reviews when released. Much of the criticism is based off the repetitive gameplay, confusing controls, and frustrating difficulty. Having played it myself, I can agree with most of these complaints. Especially the controls. I still haven't really gotten around most of them. I will say that Speed Power Gunbike is worth a try. My experience with the PlayStation is quite limited, but it is a pretty unique game that you may want to take a look at. The next game Inti made was Love and Destroy, published by Sony Entertainment and released in December of 1999 for the PlayStation 1, again only in Japan. Similar to their previous effort, Love and Destroy is again a mecha combat game, but this time solely as a third-person action romp. The game has you controlling one of 3 Q-trons, BB, Lulu, or Kiki, cybernetic girls who pilot combat mecha to fight off an alien invasion. The character designs were done by manga artist Masakazu Katsura, and the gameplay is broken up by small anime clips showcasing the story and character interactions. Each stage you pick a Q-tron and get sent out to fight. Each one has their own mecha with different handling attributes and 2 unique weapons, along with each having the basic Vulcan cannon. You're given a short briefing before each battle that describes the enemy, the stage, and recommends a Q-tron for you. But this is all in Japanese, so it's lost on me, save for the best Q-tron, which at least shows you a picture. The actual gameplay is much like a traditional third-person shooter, dual analog control with the triggers attacking and switching between weapons, and clicking the sticks allows you to jump or even fly a bit with some mecha. Love and Destroy received much better reviews than Speed Power Gunbike, and I think it is a much better game. For one, the control is much more fluid and responsive thanks to the analog support and full camera control. The graphics are much cleaner, there is a save feature, and the fighting is really, really fun, though it is still quite difficult. If you're a fan of mecha games at all, then Love and Destroy is something you should try out. Or you can just play it for the fan service. 3 years later, the next Inti game, Kurohige no Golf Shoyu, would be released for the Game Boy Advance, published by Tomy and released in April of 2002, only in Japan. As the name would suggest, it's a golf simulator, albeit one in the style of a cartoon anime. And that's really about it. Inticreates' early period is admittedly a bit sketchy, and they would not make another retail console game until 2011, instead sticking completely with digital and handheld games for the next 9 years. However, 2002 would also be the year of their first worldwide success with their first European and American localized title, Mega Man Zero, which I will touch on next episode.